Abyssal Murmurs. Today, we delve into a haunting story titled Disturb the Souls of the Dead. Now, let's enter the story. As the time for the offering approached, Heulwen's phone rang. The caller was none other than her aunt's business partner. Heulwen hurriedly answered the call. "Yes, I'm here, Aunt Amabel. Hey, you need to run over and double-check the payments. There's a mix-up with the goods." "Right now, Aunt." "Yes, just come over." "Okay, I'll be over right away." Heulwen then called her eldest daughter over to give her instructions. "Gladys, at around 7 o'clock, make sure to bring the offerings out, okay?" "Yes. Where are you going, Mom?" "I'm going over to Aunt Amabel's. There's a mix-up with the payments." "I understand. You just go ahead." Gladys was in 12th grade this year, so she could handle the offering arrangements. When she stepped outside, Heulwen instructed her aunt's children. "You kids can play, but don't go near the river or the creek, and stay away from deserted places. The intersections, understand? It's the 15th of the 7th month today. If you misbehave too much, I'll send you all back to your parents. Stay in the yard." The kids chorused. "We understand." Heulwen then grabbed her motorcycle and quickly left, as her aunt's work involved going to farms to buy fruits and agricultural products for sale. Thanks to this, her aunt and uncle managed to build themselves a nice house. Her aunt's children would come over during the summer, as their parents would send them to stay for a month before returning to the city for school. At Heulwen's house, it was wonderful. There were streams, creeks, and gardens, and they could play however they liked. The important thing was to avoid becoming overly fixated on modern gadgets that drained power, hurt their eyes, and hindered their normal development. What mattered was that they had a peaceful and fulfilling childhood. Once Heulwen left, Gladys came out and instructed the kids. "Go wash up behind the house, then each of you can have a bowl of rice." They replied in unison, "Yes, sis." The kids were mischievous, but were afraid of Gladys. They feared being sent back, so they followed their sister's orders obediently. At this point, it was nearing 7 o'clock. The kids began to bring the offerings out to help Gladys. Harding asked, "Gladys, is there an offering today?" "Yes. Isn't your family offering anything at home?" "My parents are Catholic." Solda brought out a plate of cakes and chimed in. "At Harding's house, they don't let us eat any of the offerings either." Anatole and Gladys also carried out some items to help. Gladys spoke up. "Why are there so many offerings today, Gladys?" "Today is a big offering day, the 15th of the 7th month. What does the 7th month offering mean, Gladys?" "It's the month of wandering souls. You guys ask too many questions. Just go play inside while I make the offerings," Harding pleaded. "Let us go out to play for a while. It's too noisy in here affecting my sister's offerings." "Go on. Remember what my mom told you?" They chorused. "Yes, we remember." They all tiptoed out of the gate, while inside Gladys began the ceremony. In the countryside, unlike the city, the streetlights were dim, but there was one every 100 meters or so. The sky was dark, and the sounds of frogs croaking filled the air. Tonight felt a bit colder. The houses were close together, but still shabby, as there was plenty of land, and the houses seemed to sit deep into the earth, giving the night a somewhat wild feel. They were used to it here and weren't scared. After all, tonight there was also a moon. Not knowing what to do, they wandered around. They also turned into Grandma Alula's house to buy some candies. As they walked, Most houses had altars set up in their yards, with some people having already burned offerings. The burning paper money and joss paper scattered everywhere. The scent wafted through the air, tickling their noses. The flickering flames and the wind carried the ashes away in all directions. Unburned incense sticks were also lit in front of the houses. The smell of the incense and the bonfires in the dark night, with smoke drifting from them, made the rural scene tonight feel somehow eerie. Isolde spoke up. "Why is it that everything is normal normally, but today I feel scared, Harding?" Clytus, while eating ice cream, chimed in. "Isolde, you're a girl, so you easily get scared. Normally we play in the countryside until 10 p.m. without any problems. We ride our bikes, leisurely. You and Anatole are used to it, but my sister and I aren't that familiar yet." After a while, they found themselves back at Heulwen's house, and Harding wondered, why aren't there any kids out on the street tonight? The others began to look around as well, and it was true, there really weren't any. The snacks had been finished, and Anatole suggested, "Wandering around like this isn't a good idea. How about we play hide and seek?" They all agreed. "Hey, that's a great idea. Without those guys, we can still play." "All right, gather around. Let me count. More players hide fewer players. Fewer players hide more players." When someone had to face the wall, the others laughed and teased, with Isolde pouting. "You guys are picking on me, knowing I'm a girl." Harding spoke up. "All right, let me be the one to count." Isolde grinned happily. "Thank you, Harding." Harding began to face the wall at Heulwen's house and counted. 5, 10, 15, 100. "I'm coming to find you now." Harding turned around and started searching, looking this way and that, eventually finding the other three. Each one was drenched in sweat and covered in dirt, and when they started to play again, Gladys brought out a metal bin to burn the offerings. Before burning, she scattered rice and salt all over. They ran over eagerly. "Let me burn it. Let me help clean up." The money and joss paper were tossed into the metal bin, set ablaze with flames heating their faces. They watched, finding this a curious kind of enjoyment, having been to Heulwen's many times, but this was the first time they got to participate in such a sacred task. After the offerings were finished, the group moved into the porch to eat dessert and sweets. Looking around, Gladys frowned and asked, "Where's Clytus?" They exchanged glances, then looked around again. It was true, Clytus was nowhere to be found. Harding spoke up. "I saw him just a moment ago right behind me." Sensing something was wrong, Gladys ordered, "Enough eating. Let's go find him." So, the whole group set out to search. This time they didn't dare to split up and stayed close together. They searched high and low without finding him, and Gladys finally decided to call her mother. "Mom, Clytus is missing. We can't find him." "Missing? I'll come home now." They all didn't know where to go anymore. The places they had searched provided no results. Now, they had to sit in front of the yard, waiting for Heulwen to come back and scold them. Anatole was daring enough to still be able to eat dessert, while Isolde pinched him hard, making him wince in pain. "Eating at this hour? Well, if I don't eat, what else can I do?" Isolde shot a glance at Anatole, then reached out to take some cake from the tray to eat. Heulwen came back quickly, parked the car in the yard, and immediately asked them, "Have you found Clytus yet?" Sister Gladys shook her head. "Not yet, Mom." They all chimed in, their voices filled with panic. We all played together. Clearly, to finish the game, there should be 4 of us. I don't understand why. Just turning around and Gladys has vanished. Oh no, he might be hidden by a ghost. You all better kneel for your aunt. Their faces went pale. Clearly nothing had happened, yet they were still in trouble. Heulwen told Sister Gladys, "Call some relatives over to help search, and call Cletus's parents too." Yes. Heulwen then ran out to the road, taking a flashlight to search. Gladys. Oh, Gladys. Where are you, Gladys? Seeing Heulwen searching like that, the neighbors also eagerly came out to help. Some even scolded. It's the month of the wandering souls. Letting the kids play like this. They might have been hidden away by a ghost or wandering spirit. The idea of a ghost hiding someone was not a new topic. They just feared that during this ghost month, Gladys might have been taken as a substitute offering, which was concerning. More than an hour has passed, and Gladys's whereabouts are still unknown. Gladys's parents are in a state of panic, turning to blame Heulwen as well. I sent him to you, so you should watch over him. I just went out for a moment. Isolde, Gladys's mother, suddenly breaks down in tears. What if Gladys has been kidnapped and sold for his organs? How? Uncle Hubert snapped at his wife. Stop talking nonsense. If we can't find him, we should just report it to the police. After that, everyone continued searching, while Heulwen kept lighting incense and praying. They shone flashlights into every bush and along the nearby riverbank, not to mention the bamboo groves. They searched everywhere a ghost could hide. After searching for over an hour, with still no sign of him, Uncle Hubert sat in the house, looking across the road. What if Gladys is hiding in that old sycamore tree? After that remark, everyone turned their eyes to the other side of the street, where the tall old sycamore tree stood looming. In the darkness, the thick, sprawling branches looked both dense and ominous. Heulwen replied, I searched all around the riverbank, but I found nothing. Saying that, Heulwen went back to light incense and pray to the spirits once more, hoping to connect with the deceased for guidance. At this point, everyone felt helpless. Isolde kept crying. Looking up at the pitch-black night sky, they wondered where else they could search for their son. Suddenly, the dog MC, lying quietly, jumped up and dashed straight towards the sycamore tree. Heulwen called out, MC, where are you running off to? Come back here. MC ignored her, and after a few seconds, started barking furiously while growling. Everybody felt a chill and hesitated to follow because they said dogs can see ghosts, especially black dogs. MC barked loudly over there, while they kept calling it back, which caused quite a commotion throughout the neighborhood. Not wanting to disturb others, Heulwen's family gathered together, holding flashlights and bravely moving towards that spot. The flashlight beams piercing through the darkness made their hearts race with anxiety. If they didn't find Gladys and stumbled upon something else, they might all run away in fear. Although they were in a group, standing under the old sycamore tree, everyone felt a cold chill, as if numerous people above them were sitting there, dangling their legs and looking down. Nobody dared to raise their heads. Tonight was also the full moon of July, and carelessness could lead to encountering wandering spirits. The light illuminated where MC was wagging its tail, and Uncle Hubert exclaimed, but didn't say it too loud, just enough for a few to hear, Here's Gladys. Without saying anything more, Uncle Hubert handed the flashlight to his wife and bent down to pick up Gladys. While everyone was familiar with ghost stories, very few in the house had actually witnessed it. Seeing Gladys curled up, his eyes wide, body dirty, and mouth full of mud was quite unsettling. Uncle Hubert laid Cletus down on the porch, gently calling to him and even digging dirt out of his mouth. Seeing him like that, everyone felt pity. They just hoped he was okay, but no one could hold back their laughter. Those who weren't directly involved stood a safe distance away, since being close to him was quite foul. Isolde then said, "Can someone call an ambulance?" Someone else spoke up. "Take the urine of that little boy for him to drink and wash his face to wake him up." I heard some other people say that. Heulwen went inside to call Harding. "Harding, come down and bring a bowl to pee in for me." Harding looked at Gladys and was very scared. He stammered, "I can't pee, Auntie." Seeing his pale face, Heulwen turned to Anatole. At least Anatole was from the countryside, so he was more straightforward. After Anatole finished peeing, Heulwen brought it out to the front porch to give to her father. Uncle Hubert took the urine to wash Clytus's face, and even poured some into his mouth for him to drink. Surprisingly, it worked. Clytus woke up, frowning. "Dad, what did you give me to eat that smells so bad?" "It's cow dung. You were possessed by a ghost. It made you eat cow dung." Upon hearing that, he turned to the side to gag and tried to throw up everything. Sister Gladys even brought him a basin of water for him to wash his face. Once he felt a bit better, Uncle Hubert asked him, "What were you doing over there, right by the old rain tree?" "I didn't go over there. Just now, after playing 5-10, I saw Sister Gladys packing things, so we ran back. But someone called me from behind, so I turned around." "Who called you?" "Some children. They were in a big group, hiding by the rain tree. They invited me to play over there, and even offered me cakes. Now I realize it wasn't cake, but cow dung instead. Well, let's go home. After this ghost month, I'll take you to play at Heulwen's." Clytus pleaded, "Dad, let me stay and play. If the month ends, all my siblings will go back. If you want to play, I'll take you down tomorrow. Right now you stink so bad even dogs won't come near you." "Yes, sir." Clytus obediently climbed into the car for his father to take him home. Everyone returned to their own homes, while the others went to sleep. Just a quick nap, and the night would be gone. Isolde slept with Sister Gladys and said, "Luckily, we had MC, right, Sister Gladys? If not, we wouldn't know where to find Clytus." "Yes, MC is M, the one Grandma used to raise." After Grandma passed away, Clytus asked to keep MC. Uncle Hubert's house is too cramped, so he brought MC to stay with us. It's been 2 years since MC has been here. Is it possible Grandma sent MC to find Clytus? Sister Gladys smiled gently. "Spiritual matters are hard to explain. Just sleep." As promised, the next day, Clytus was taken by Uncle Hubert to Heulwen's house to play. He was very happy to see those kids, but they all kept their distance from him, scared off by the smell of cow dung. Clytus justified himself. "I'm very clean now. I smell just like comfort." Harding teased him. "You smell good, but does your mouth still have cow dung?" Everyone burst into laughter. Just then Heulwen called out, "You all come in for lunch." They all rushed down to the kitchen to scoop rice, and then back out to the familiar porch to sit and eat comfortably. Heulwen also scooped up a bowl of rice and sat down to eat with them. Harding spoke up. "Is the 15th of the 7th month really scary, Auntie?" "It depends on each person's spiritual beliefs. Generally, one should avoid things from the unseen, not just in the 7th month. As long as you don't violate the spiritual realm, you'll be fine." "Have you heard a ghost story?" I'll tell one. All the kids chimed in. Yes, Auntie, you kids aren't afraid of ghosts. Why do you want to listen? We're listening to learn not to eat cow dung like Clytus. Hearing Isolde's response, everyone laughed again, making Clytus feel embarrassed. Heulwen continued. Sit still, and I'll tell you a true ghost story about the 7th month, a story that I witnessed. The kids sat quietly, happily eating rice while listening to Heulwen's tale. Rewinding to the 90s, at that time Heulwen had just come here as a bride. That morning, Heulwen had gone to the market early to buy offerings for the full moon. Today was indeed the full moon of the 7th month. As she pedaled her rickety bicycle into the yard and set down the things she had bought, she asked her mother-in-law, who was standing by the gate. What's going on, Mom? Erica replied, They're working on the road, dear. Working on the road? Why are they doing it this month, especially during the full moon? I don't know. Probably the government didn't consider things like that. That year, the road was muddy. In the rainy season, the place would be a slippery mess where one could easily fall and hurt themselves. In the dry season, the ground would harden into clumps, creating clouds of dust when walked on. Opposite Heulwen's in-laws' house was a river with a sizable cotton tree already growing on the riverbank. The road construction team had pulled into the vacant lot next to Heulwen's in-laws' home to set up camp, as this was the cleanest open area from the beginning of the road to here. A temporary shelter had been constructed from old metal sheets and wooden logs. The current road crew consisted of 7 people, including the team leader. According to the plan, they would officially commence work at 2 p.m. that afternoon, but for now, they were still taking their time. Baron, the oldest member, was in charge of preparing meals for the crew. After receiving money from the team leader, he put on his hat and took his old bicycle to the market. It took him more than an hour to return, and upon his arrival, Damien, the team leader, seemed annoyed with him. Did you plan to buy out the whole market? I just got there, and am not familiar with the market yet. Damien scrutinized the items Baron had just bought. What are you doing with this paper offering? Don't you offer anything when you're starting construction? Not having much faith in spirits or deities, Damien wasn't very concerned about such matters. He urged, Come on, go prepare the meal. Let's eat early so we can get to work this afternoon. I got it. Baron took the items he had bought and went to the back area to cook. After the meal was prepared, everyone lay down on a makeshift wooden bed to take a nap. The low tin roof was fortunate for them, as this month was relatively cool, making it comfortable for sleeping. At 2 p.m., everyone had gathered at the front. Baron brought out a tray of fruits and placed it on a chair for Damien to offer, and once the offerings were done, they began their first day of construction. The first day of work was just a formality since they wouldn't start real work until the excavator and barge arrived the following day. That day they mainly focused on breaking ground, whatever they could dismantle. They did, to prepare for filling in soil from the river to help solidify the road later. As evening approached, they planned to head to the river for a swim, as the river water was quite clean. Seeing everyone stripped down to their shorts, Baron called out, Hey, where are you guys going? Donald responded, We're going to the river to cool off. Are you crazy? It's the 7th full moon today. Get back here, all of you. Donald laughed heartily. Don't worry, Uncle. If we haven't done anything wrong to anyone, no one will do anything to us. Upon hearing that, Edgar, Henry, and Alexander stopped going and walked to the side to scoop water from the bathing tub. Donald pursed his lips. Mom, those cowards. Let's go, Vincent. Donald and Vincent walked straight over and waded into the river to bathe. It was not yet dusk. They swam until it was dusk before coming out, with Vincent being closer to the shore. So he went first, and Donald followed behind. Just as Donald was wading, he suddenly fell face down into the water, flailing his arms. Hearing the splashing, Vincent turned back to look. "Get up, brother Donald. What are you swimming for?" Seeing Donald not coming up and his hands still flailing, Vincent immediately sensed something was wrong, so he waded back to grab Donald's hand and pull him up. When Donald was pulled out of the water, he was gasping. "Get up! Up top! Get up quickly!" "What happened, brother Donald?" I got my leg pulled." Hearing that, Vincent understood enough, and Donald instructed, "Don't tell anyone, okay? I'm embarrassed. I won't tell." The two of them climbed ashore and headed straight to the side to wash off. By the time dinner came, Donald still looked pale and dazed, not as chatty as usual. Edgar looked at him and teased, "Why are you so pale after swimming?" Donald just stared without daring to say anything, silently eating dinner. Alexander spoke up to tease, "Must have been a ghost that pulled his leg." Vincent reflexively responded, "How do you know, brother Donald?" Before he could finish his sentence, Donald immediately covered his mouth. Donald glared, "Eat your dinner. Why are you all asking too many questions?" The group stopped laughing and began to grow a little suspicious. No one said anything. They just continued their meal in silence. After the meal, they sat in the hut, singing casually just a few tunes. Here, at night, there were no streetlights. The sky was pitch black, and the light in the hut was just a dim bulb. As it got darker, Baron brought out the offerings for the ceremony. The offerings were very simple, just a few bowls of sweet soup, cakes, and some fruits. Damien, lying on the hammock in the hut, turned to speak to the others. "This guy offers prayers every day." The group just laughed and said nothing. Looking around again, they saw that Donald had dozed off, not knowing if it was because he was tired from the first day of work. The plus side was that Donald snored loudly, and Damien made a jab. "Damn it. With that snoring, it'll be tough for anyone to sleep tonight." Seeing Baron was still performing the rites in front of the hut, Damien sat up and spoke. "Hey, shall we tease Donald a bit?" Henry asked. "How do we tease him?" "Throw a blanket over him and wail like that. He'll be panicked." Vincent stopped him. "No, man. Don't play like that. Earlier this afternoon by the river, brother Donald was pulled by a ghost." The whole group listened in astonishment as Damien burst into laughter. "It's just a cramp. What kind of ghost is that? Do you think people get their legs pulled while bathing here? I'm serious. Earlier I saw some bruised fingerprints on Donald's leg." The others chimed in. "That's creepy. I've never heard a story like this firsthand. I've been bathing in the river all my life and never experienced anything like that. Lucky me." Damien squinted with a mocking smile. "You guys are such scaredy cats for men. Let me handle it. It'll be more fun to scare him again." Damien got up from the hammock, grabbed a bunch of ripe bananas Baron bought for everyone, and then took a cup filled with rice. He gently pulled the blanket up and covered Donald's head. He placed the food at Donald's feet as an offering and even took some incense to light. Before playing his prank, he reminded the others, "When Donald wakes up, you guys have to look at him and scream ghost, okay?" After giving instructions, Damien pretended to cry dramatically. "Donald, oh Donald, why did you die so miserably, Donald? If you're dead, leave your girlfriend to me, Donald." The group erupted into laughter, and Damien joined in. Hearing the commotion, Baron came in from the feast to see what was going on, and his face turned pale upon witnessing the scene. "My goodness, are you all out of tricks?" Damien replied. "Just having some fun. There's nothing wrong. You're being too serious. It's the full moon of the 7th month. How can you mess around like this?" Baron grabbed the blanket and pulled it back, trying to rouse Donald. "Donald, wake up. How can you sleep so soundly with all this noise?" "Wake up." After a few shakes, Donald didn't wake up, and there was no sign of life. Baron began to worry and called out again. "Donald, wake up. Come on, wake up." Fortunately, Donald opened his eyes, but they were glassy and stared vacantly in one direction, showing no other reaction. Baron turned to the group. "You guys better come see if something's wrong with Donald." Thinking Baron was joking, Henry spoke up. "Come on, are you calling us over to scare Donald? I'm not joking with you guys. Come here quickly." Everyone gathered around to see, and what Baron said was indeed true. Donald lay there, completely still, unresponsive to being called. Damien's face turned pale upon seeing this. He stammered, "Is it possible that he got his soul taken by the river ghost this afternoon? What ghost comes to the shore to take souls? It would have happened in the river. Quick, let's get him to the health station." Vincent grabbed the vehicle, and everyone lifted Donald into the car, with Henry supporting him from behind. Before they left, Damien reminded, "When you get down there, you're forbidden from mentioning anything about me, okay? If you talk, just mention the river ghost." "We already know." After they left, Damien turned back inside and instructed everyone, "Let's treat today's incident as an unfortunate mishap. Everyone should rest and get to bed early. We have work tomorrow." "Yes." Baron also ran outside to burn the offerings and the paper clothes. The night sky was pitch black, and before the tent, the fire from the burning papers flickered wildly. The embers, still carrying a bit of flame, floated up into the air, creating an eerie sight from afar. After offering the prayers, Baron brought everything back inside for everyone to eat. "Have some sweets and then go to bed, you guys." "Yes." Everyone gathered around, some digging into the sweet soup, others nibbling on cakes to steady their nerves. Just as they were halfway through their meal, a storm broke outside, and the thunder roared loudly. Alexander spoke up. "Damn it, going to rain soon." Alexander shoved the half-eaten cake into his mouth and ran over to pull in the blanket that had been hung out to dry earlier. The light barely seeped through, just a flickering from the temporary tent. Outside was very dark, with the croaking of frogs and the buzzing of insects adding to the feeling of solitude. "Alexander." It was Baron calling, and Alexander turned around to reply, "I'm coming in." Under the fluttering blanket on the opposite side stood barefoot figures, not touching the ground. Alexander suddenly felt scared, gripping both ends of the blanket and yanking it in before running into the house, not looking back once. The white shadows flitted in and out, both large and small, gathering there. Was it because of the offerings, the incense, that the wandering spirits came to partake? Once inside, Alexander shook the blanket a few times before folding it back. He asked, "What did Baron call for?" "Who called you?" "Someone did. I heard it clearly." "I didn't. You can ask them." The others chimed in. "No one called." Alexander glanced at them, then turned to Baron. "Or were you just messing with me?" "I really didn't. Who would dare joke with you now?" Seeing the serious faces of everyone, Alexander understood and quietly lay down in the middle. The others helped each other close the tent's door and Henry lay down close to Baron, whispering, "It's only the first day here, and it feels so eerie, Uncle. It's because of you guys. I'm just worried that Donald might have lost his soul somewhere. Just go to sleep." As dawn approached, Vincent and Henry returned, and Baron asked, "What about Donald?" "His family came, so we went back." Baron let out a long sigh and urged, "All right, you two go in and have breakfast. You still have to work later." "Yes." As the two of them went inside, others began to wake up. Damien no longer cared about what happened to Donald, considering that taking him away was enough and that he had fulfilled his responsibility. After everyone finished eating, the trucks carrying dirt and excavation machines, in general, all the types of equipment needed for road construction were present. They began digging the road and scooping sand from the river to elevate it. At first, they didn't scoop from the river's outer edges, but dug close to the riverbank and loaded it onto trucks to dump onto the road. According to the project, the riverbank would be covered for a stretch to build it closer to the road. Everyone had their tasks, and even the children and curious onlookers gathered to watch the workers. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until the excavator unearthed a white skull buried deep within the black earth. As the bucket brought it closer to the sand truck, everyone present was startled. A fellow worker shouted loudly and signaled the operator, "Stop! Quickly, stop!" Then that person continued signaling for the operator to lower the scoop back down near the truck. The skull rolled out from the black soil, and everyone there erupted into chaos. Damien saw this and let out a heavy breath. "What the hell? Just dug it up." An old man who lived here long enough spoke up. "Back when I was young, when someone died, they would wrap them in a mat and bury them in that dirt. During the rainy season, the ground would soften, just push them down and flatten it out. They would bury adults, but the children, they'd just take them out here, roll them in a mat, and shove them down." Damien asked, "And later, didn't they dig them up to bury them properly?" "No. Back then, life was so rough. Just getting enough to eat was a struggle. Who had the time to remember the dead? Sometimes the adults would be remembered, but the kids? Not much at all. And even if they remembered, how would they know whose bones belonged to whom?" "That sounds terrible." The old man looked annoyed. "You young folks today don't know a thing because you weren't born during the war. When the enemy came, whoever was alive held on to each other and ran. Just being alive was a blessing. Having a place to bury the dead was also fortunate. You haven't seen bombs and shells with bodies lying all around, have you? Some died because of the bombs, their remains collected until there was barely a bowl's worth left." Saying this, the old man turned angrily and walked away, blaming the younger generation for not understanding anything. Damien then told Baron, "Uncle, go to the market and buy some offerings to retrieve those bones." "I'll go right now." "Buy offerings, not just food for eating elsewhere." "I know already." Baron grabbed his bike and quickly rode to the market, while the workers sat aside, waiting. Damien spoke to Harvey, the one directing where to dump the dirt. "Uncle, after the offerings, who is going to retrieve the bones?" "Well, we'll invite some people skilled at bone recovery for reburial. But how do we know whom to invite?" "Ask the folks living around here. I'm new in town, so I don't know." Damien still appeared displeased, but went to ask the onlookers gathered there. Some directed him to the person skilled at recovering bones, so Damien sent Alexander to invite that person. Later, the bone recovery specialist arrived, and Baron placed the offering tray near the freshly dug area. Damien then made his offering. "To the one who has passed, I am the team leader of the road construction here. It was unfortunate to disturb your remains. I ask for your forgiveness. We will find a proper resting place for you." After the offering, they waited for the incense to burn out before asking the specialist to start retrieving the bones. Damien then said to Harvey, "Looking at these bones, they must belong to a child." "Well, that old man said so earlier. Most of them are children. Let's just wait." The scent was fading more than 2 parts. The one collecting the remains had already prayed and moved through there. Then several workers also helped to facilitate the work of the person collecting the remains. After more than an hour, the bones were neatly arranged on a top laid out in advance. The remains buried long ago by the riverbank were not complete anymore. The one collecting the remains continued to search the area where the bones were found for over half an hour, but still could not find the missing leg. Harvey looked at the remains and said to Damien, "It must have been washed away into the river. This area has always had fluctuating water levels. Let's call Tien's team down to handle these remains." "Yes." After notifying the team in charge of the remains, Damien returned to the workers and shouted, "All right, get back to work, fellas. Why are you all sitting around?" The workers stood up and got back to their tasks. What was puzzling was that all the machinery, including the excavators, trucks, and diggers, suddenly malfunctioned simultaneously. None of them could be started, no matter how hard they tried to restart them. They focused on checking the machinery for any malfunctions. Edgar, sitting and looking out at the river, suddenly shouted, "Hey everyone, look over there." Edgar's shout was so loud that everyone turned to look. The chain of the excavator that was dredging the sand below the river had snapped and fell straight into the water. The sand-carrying barge also stalled and couldn't be started but was drifting away. Everything unfolded terrifyingly. Since the moment they unearthed the skull, the locals had lingered longer, growing more numerous. At this point, a flood of terrifying chatter erupted. Repairing the machines yielded no results, and soon it was lunchtime. Baron rushed over to call, "It's past lunchtime now. You all should come eat." Damien was irritable and snapped, "Damn, the work hasn't progressed at all, and you want to eat." Harvey slapped Damien hard on the shoulder. "You're the team leader. You're being unreasonable. If you don't want to eat, let others eat." With that, Harvey walked to the other side of the road. He had been dragging along all morning and was starving. The operators, along with various types of equipment, kept working alongside Damien until the road construction finished. Next to their makeshift shelter, another was put up. Portions of food increased, and Baron had to work much harder. Heulwen's mother-in-law had been there since early morning, and only now returned for lunch. Upon seeing her return, Heulwen asked, "You're back, Mom? How's it going out there? Have they fixed the machines yet?" "Not yet. I told you. If we don't perform the ancestral rituals properly, how could we get anything done? As for adults, I don't know if they listen, but the spirits of children are very sensitive. For example, if someone promised to pick up a child when burying them but didn't come to pick them up, they would wait there forever." Heulwen felt goosebumps all over after hearing that, and she continued to ask, "Did we bury anyone out there, Mom?" "I don't know. It's been so long since anyone mentioned that. If there was, it would be out there. If we're lucky, we might still have the remains. If not, they might have been washed away into the river, my child. Let's eat. I'm hungry now." "Yes." Suddenly, Heulwen's mother-in-law looked out at a section of the river where a sycamore tree stood. She was very small back then, and whether certain stories are true or not, she didn't really know. Just when it seemed everything would stop there, the machines still wouldn't start in the afternoon. Helpless and with no other options, Damien swore. Seeing the situation was not improving, Harvey spoke up. "Let's have the kids dig near that spot to see what we can find, but dig carefully." As if understanding Harvey's hint, Damien walked over and urged the workers, "You all dig up those layers of soil over there, near the spot where we found that small remains." The new workers were getting their tools to dig, and the top layer of soil was quite hard. It wasn't easy to dig with a shovel. They had to use a chisel and a hammer to break through it. Once they got past the hard layer above, the soil underneath was softer. After digging for a while, they uncovered 2.5 more bodies, 2 intact child corpses, and 1 adult corpse that only had the pelvic area down to the legs remaining. Everyone just looked at each other, pale-faced. With just a small section, so many corpses were found, they didn't know what to do. The dead had found their rest, and disturbing them like this was disrupting their eternal sleep. Touching anything spiritual would bring about a lot of inexplicable troubles. Harvey had just said to Damien, "You'd best invite a priest to perform a ritual, because what we are doing is disturbing their peace. Being stubborn won't help us." Damien replied, "Come on, I've already performed rituals and offered prayers. Inviting a priest costs money, and what would we even get from them? Just leave it to me. Once we handle these remains, things will be fine tomorrow." Harvey looked at Damien, frowning. "You're young, so you've never heard the saying about seeing the coffin before shedding tears, have you? Honestly, I've never believed in such things or done any worship. So how did you end up as the team leader?" "I'm skilled." Harvey didn't say anything more. Damien spoke like that, but he had an uncle working in the government. This tiny position of team leader was insignificant to him. At 2 in the morning, when everyone was deep in sleep, the night outside was desolate and quiet. The wind blew from the river, whistling through the cracks of the old corrugated sheets, as if ghosts were calling to each other. Ding, ding, howl, howl. All the people in the 2 temporary shelters were startled awake. Some couldn't handle it and covered their ears with their hands. Most had their hearts racing wildly, panicking without understanding what was happening. After calming down a bit, they gathered to check on the vehicles. Damien was the same. He swore under his breath, "Damn it, when we need to move, nothing happens, and when we don't need it, it all goes off." The vehicles suddenly honked and blasted their horns, all going off simultaneously. The lights on the vehicles flickered continuously, and the loud sounds from the motorcycles were enough to give anyone a headache. Along with that, barking dogs added to the chaos. Vincent asked Damien, "What now, bro? What else can we do?" "Turn them off." They all dispersed to turn off the engines, but no matter how they fiddled with the keys, they couldn't turn them off. At this moment, they feared the situation much more than they feared the machines going off. They tried to handle the situation as best as they could because they felt as if someone was standing around and staring intently at them. Harvey didn't go over. He just stood there looking on, and there was another person who didn't go over either. Harvey then asked, "You operate the excavator, so why are you standing here?" The face of that person was pale, and he trembled slightly. In a stuttering voice, Why aren't you going over? I asked you first." That person took a step back behind Harvey, peeking out just a little to look over. Did you see what I see? The spirits of the children are jumping around those vehicles. You see it too? I saw the same thing, so I didn't dare to go over. A deep voice suddenly rang out. "What do you see?" Harvey and the other person jumped, screaming. Harvey asked, "Baron, why are you here?" "You see it too, right?" "I don't see anything. I don't know how to fix machines, so I'm not going over there. It's just me alone in that shelter. I got so scared that I ran over here." This is definitely related to the spirits. They all stood here, staring over there, and in less than 10 minutes, the people over there started rushing back. Harvey asked, "Why is everyone running back?" A worker spoke up. "Oh my God, they're throwing mud at us like crazy." The ones who were hit by the mud grabbed whatever cloth they could to wipe off, but no one dared to step outside anymore. The noise of machinery was so loud that it echoed throughout the area, disrupting the peace that once existed there. The locals, curious about what was happening, turned on their lights and gathered at the gate to observe. Harvey was sitting near Damien but had to shout really loud to be heard over the noise. "So what are you gonna do?" "Should I go over there and cut all the electric wires?" "If you can cut them, then go ahead. We'll reconnect them tomorrow. But I don't dare go over there. It's too scary." "So what are you going to do?" "What else can we do? We need to urgently invite a monk tomorrow." Everyone huddled together in the makeshift shelter, discussing all sorts of things, because with all that shouting, how could anyone sleep? Those horrifying sounds echoed for about 30 minutes in the night before falling silent again, returning to the eerie stillness like before. No one spoke. They just climbed into their beds and lay close together to sleep. Just when they thought they would get some peace, strange noises began to emerge around the two makeshift shelters, the sound of children laughing and running. Not only that, they even ran on top of the old tin roof. Henry, frightened, clutched Alexander tightly, muttering, "Ghost, ghost. It's coming over here." Not just Henry. Everyone else was scared stiff. They had thought that ghosts only existed in graveyards or in dark, quiet forests. After running around on the tin for a while, they started throwing mud at the old roofs until a rooster crowed, and everything went quiet again. After a long, exhausting night, everyone took advantage to catch a nap. Baron, however, couldn't sleep much longer and had to get up to go buy food for everyone. Pulling the old tin sheet aside to step outside, Baron was horrified, his mouth trembling. He pointed upwards. "Oh, what are these handprints? How could they have imprinted here like this?" On the old tin sheets outside, handprints and footprints of various sizes were clearly imprinted, with some marks either incomplete or muddied. Baron suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He quickly grabbed his bicycle and left without calling anyone. Surely, when they woke up, they would all see what he had seen. Last night truly was a terrifying night for everyone. For the road workers and the residents living nearby. This morning, Damien managed to invite several monks from the nearby temple to set up an altar for offerings. Cakes, soft drinks, and milk were displayed on 3 large tables. The monks arrived, chanting and performing rituals for over 2 hours before finishing. Locals and folks from nearby areas gathered to watch. The news that human remains had been unearthed here had spread throughout the markets since yesterday. After the ceremony, Damien had to give the monks quite a decent amount of money too. It's true that these monks were impressive. The machines were back in operation without any need for repairs. After a tiring day, they started the work again, and that night everyone ate and then rushed to sleep early. Just when they thought they would finally get a good night's sleep, little did they know. At exactly 2 a.m., everything repeated itself. The howls and horn sounds filled the air again, causing them agony in their ears. Damien went over to ask Harvey, "You thought inviting the monk would solve everything?" "It's because you invited a fake monk. We should have consulted someone local. You did it on your own, so who can you blame?" Damien was getting really annoyed, having lost some money with problems still surfacing at work. Yet the fortune teller said Damien would have a smooth year, flourishing like a kite in the wind. The next morning, Damien asked the locals living around there, as well as the visitors who came to see this haunted site. After some inquiries, he figured out that it was Alan, the shaman from the village down the road, who was rumored to raise spirit soldiers. Whether it was because he raised spirit soldiers or not, he was quite skilled and helped many people. However, it was strange that he couldn't have a son to continue his lineage. He had as many as 5 daughters. Damien drove Alan to the site, and Baron had already bought the essential items for the offerings, just like the monks had done the day before. Alan looked over the offerings and instructed Baron, "Bring me a really large plate of rice and salt, and 200 candles about a foot tall. Later, as I scatter the rice and salt, you light 1 candle for every foot." Baron quickly complied, and Alan began his work. He unwrapped all the packets of cakes on the table and stuck straws into all the milk cartons, placing them on the ground beside the offering table rather than leaving them on it. Only fruits and flowers remained on the table. Alan didn't recite any prayers. He lit incense and murmured, "I bow to the spirits present here. Today I present this offering. I invite the hidden ones to come and eat their fill. Then I request to take their remains to be buried properly elsewhere, so that they may rest in peace without noise and disturbance." After finishing the prayer, Alan took the plate of salt and rice and scattered a thin line from the offering table all the way down the road, about 300 meters long. Baron followed Alan to the end of the road, then circled back to the cottonwood tree, where Alan spread rice and salt around the tree and lit 5 more candles there. Remarkably, Alan burned incense 3 times instead of just once, like the monks had done the day before. He explained, "They are very hungry, so let them eat to their heart's content." While the other tasks seemed insignificant, the area around the cottonwood tree was crucial. The onlookers whispered amongst themselves, but didn't dare speak loudly to disrupt the ceremony. Damien, noticing this, couldn't help but ask, "Why are you scattering rice and salt around the cottonwood tree, Master?" "Oh, I was planning to tell you later, but since you asked, I'll explain now." The cottonwood tree was carefully avoided when the road was being constructed. A little earth was left around it, and it was wrapped in concrete. We shouldn't disturb it, as many lost spirits dwell there. It's almost like their home. After hearing this, Damien simply nodded, surprised by how mysterious the spiritual world could be. Once the 3rd incense stick had burned out, he let Baron burn the offerings for the deceased, and Alan took his leave. Damien, wanting to show gratitude, pressed an envelope into Alan's hand, but he declined. "I'm here to help the living and won't accept money. Just let me take some snacks back for the children in the village." "Yes, please take them, Master." Alan selected a few packets of cakes and candies, placing them into a plastic bag before getting into a different worker's vehicle for his ride home. From the moment Alan finished the offerings, everything proceeded smoothly. In just a short stretch of road, they unearthed 8 bodies, at the very least. The cottonwood tree area remained where workers continued lighting incense around it at dusk. The project was finally completed after several months. As Heulwen reached this point, the kid shouted, "Is that it, Auntie?" "Why is Mr. Damien so strange?" "That's right. He's kind of wild, isn't he?" Heulwen replied. "It's precisely because of that nature that something big will happen later. The whole group became excited. Is there more, Auntie? Please continue. Yes, Auntie, we can't wait. Heulwen looked at the kids. Have you all finished your meals? They all responded in unison. Yes, we have. Put your bowls down, wash your hands and mouths, and come here. But move inside the house to sit. It's the 15th of the lunar month, and it's getting late. I'm a bit scared, Heulwen instructed. The group of kids jumped up and quickly rushed downstairs to hasten their return to listen to Heulwen's story. Once they were seated around Heulwen, she began to continue. After finishing this path, Damien's team rested for 20 days before starting another project. This time, they were to develop a residential complex, an area designated for housing. Essentially, it was a piece of vacant land overgrown with weeds and wild grass. On the first day, they began chopping down trees and clearing grass. After clearing a wide area, they set up a temporary shelter for the workers. This site was not near the river like the previous one, so they had to drill for a well to source water for use. Learning from the previous experience, Damien instructed Baron to purchase more elaborate offerings for the worship, and when making the offerings, Damien prayed sincerely as well. Perhaps due to Damien's heartfelt prayers and sufficient rituals, the work proceeded much more smoothly this time. Reflecting on that last occasion, everyone had been terrified. Some were so scared they even had a fever. By the 10th day of construction, the excavator hit something hard. The operator stopped and got down to check, then reported back to Damien, "Hey, I hit something." Upon hearing this, Damien's face turned slightly pale. "Don't tell me you've unearthed a skeleton or something." "No, I see a lid. It looks like a wooden box," the operator replied. "What wooden box could be buried down there?" "Just go ahead and dig it up," Damien ordered. "Yes, sir." The excavator operator called over several more workers, and they used shovels and picks to uncover the unknown object. After some hard work, they finally retrieved it. It was a wooden box, to be precise, a chest made of wood. It was unclear how long the chest had been buried, but it appeared to be made of leam wood, a very expensive type of wood known for its durability and high decay resistance. Even if buried for 100 years, this wood would hardly decompose. Seeing the strange chest, everyone gathered to take a look. The chest looked quite simple on the outside and had a brass lock. Vincent looked at the chest, chuckling. "Wow, we might have found a treasure chest." "I've heard that wealthy families would bury their gold to escape danger, marking the spot to return and dig it up later." The group of workers immediately agreed with this idea. Baron, however, disagreed and said, "Don't touch it. What if there's something inside?" "Let's call the police to handle it." Edgar countered, "What if it's filled with gold or jewels? We might each get a share." Alexander chimed in, "That's right, sir. Those rich folks have been dead for 7 generations. We can just spend it for them." "How do you know this chest contains gold or treasures?" "It has to contain something valuable, right? Or else, what could it possibly hold?" The group burst into laughter at Baron, who quietly walked away from the makeshift shelter. He decided not to get involved in this strange matter. Noticing Baron leaving, Edgar spoke up. "Maybe we should listen to Baron. Let the police handle it. We don't know anything about what's inside." "Henry, Chen, and gang, when the police come, it will become state property, meaning we lose everything. But how do we know what's in there?" Hearing everyone talk back and forth, Damien also had some thoughts in his mind. Indeed, if the police came, we'd lose it all. If there were valuable assets inside, we could simply share a little to keep everyone quiet. Damien spoke up. "Now, Whoever dares to open it will get the big prize. The rest will just receive their share. Deal. Everyone was eager for the big prize, but their courage was tiny, so they fell silent. Taking advantage of this, Damien went over to grab a steel rod and said, "If no one is going to do it, then I will." Damien took the steel rod and struck the lock hard. After a few hits, it broke open. Once he finished, he tossed the rod aside and prepared to open the chest. Everyone huddled around to see the result, and Damien, feeling nervous, also opened it slowly. When the chest finally popped open, everyone was taken aback, stepping back and screaming. Inside, there was not a speck of gold or silver, but a skeleton buried sitting up. The skeleton was dry and had a pale white color. Notably, there was a small wooden stake driven into its skull. The stake remained lodged in the skull and wouldn't fall out. What was even more striking was that there were no talismans inside, but all the wooden surfaces were engraved with crude drawings similar to those on a talisman. The workers stood further back, whispering among themselves, "See, I told you not to open it. No gold in sight, just a complete skeleton." But why was it buried sitting up with a stake in its head? Could it be some kind of hexing? Hexing? Or maybe something is trapped inside? Scary. Let's go over there. Damien, feeling frightened, quickly ran after the workers, cursing out of habit. Damn it. Why is it that if you're going to bury someone, you don't put them in a coffin but leave them in a chest? Though scared, Alexander teased, made us excited for nothing. Damien thought for a few seconds before approaching the skeleton again, gripping the wooden stake in the skull to pull it out. After all, it was already dead and suffered such cruelty, he thought it might be considered a good deed. Who knows, maybe the dead would be grateful and bless him with wealth. As he pulled the stake out, the skull cracked further, with a piece of the skull dropping into the chest. The wooden stake was left inside the chest. Just after tossing the stake into the chest, Damien suddenly collapsed to the ground. The workers rushed over to help him, as the fall was quite hard, leaving him bruised and scraped. Alexander asked, "What happened? You just fell out of nowhere." Damien stood up, frowning. "I don't know. It felt like someone rushed in and bumped into me. My whole body suddenly got hot. Must have fainted from the heat. Come on, let's rest." At noon, Damien devoured 3 big bowls of rice. The bowl of soup was just right, eating ravenously like a starving man. Everyone looked on in astonishment, and Baron asked, "Why are you eating 3 times your usual amount today?" "I'm just really hungry. I don't understand why I can't seem to be full." Not only did Damien eat a lot, but he also ate quickly, leaving fewer food supplies for others, forcing them to eat instant noodles. After filling up and downing a large cup of water, Damien went to bed and fell asleep immediately. Everyone found it strange, and afterward, they gathered together to discuss the chest. Waking up to the time to work, Damien didn't want to get up. He had to be called several times before he finally got out of bed. As soon as he woke up, he asked, "I'm so hungry. Is there anything to eat, Uncle?" "At this hour, only instant noodles are left, my boy." "Make me 5 packs, Uncle. I'm so hungry." Baron, who was sitting next to Damien, looked at him and asked, "What's wrong with you? How do you feel?" "My stomach feels like something is inside it. It's churning and I'm continually hungry. I think I'll buy some deworming medicine tomorrow. Hurry up and make the noodles for me." "All right, I'll get right on it." The pot of noodles was freshly brought out while still steaming hot, yet Damien hungrily devoured them, eating so eagerly that he used his hands instead of chopsticks. This unusual way of eating piqued the curiosity of everyone present. After they finished eating, the group went outside to work. Everyone did their own tasks, and Damien didn't scream or curse as he usually did. He just sat quietly in one spot, staring into space. That night, Damien also ate a lot, stuffing himself before going to bed and snoring loudly. Baron and the others went outside to smoke, and Baron said, "What if he's been possessed? He's acting like someone possessed, not himself at all." Vincent leaned closer to the group and whispered, "What if Damien has released something? Like in a horror movie?" "Hey, don't say that. It's scary to hear." Baron continued, "Let's see how it goes tomorrow. Then we can find a shaman to exorcise him. I told him at first not to mess with those things, but he wouldn't listen." Here, surely no one noticed. When the trunk was opened, half of the lid looked like half of an amulet that had been split in two. During the day, work was tiring, so everyone fell asleep deeply at night, even snoring loudly. That night, the power was cut off early, so each makeshift shelter had to light candles temporarily, with 2 candles per shelter. The 2 makeshift shelters sat forlornly in an expansive, empty piece of land with no nearby houses. The sounds of rustling and the crunching of food brought Edgar awake. Edgar was the hardest to sleep among the workers here. He opened his eyes and sat up. It was very dark inside the shelter, and 1 candle had already gone out. Edgar looked towards the corner of the shelter, where Baron usually kept the food, and asked, "Is Damien hungry again?" Luckily, Baron cooked some rice earlier in case he got hungry at night. The sound of munching stopped, and a shadow in the dark corner stood up and slowly moved towards Edgar. He had no intention of anything, intending to lie back down and sleep some more, but then he realized Damien was still asleep in bed. Suddenly, Edgar felt a chill run down his spine. If Damien was lying here, then who was that in the corner? Not daring to say another word, Edgar quickly pulled the blanket over his head, and before he knew it, cold sweat was already dripping down his face. Before completely covering himself, he even tried to pinch the person next to him awake. Though under the blanket, Edgar could still hear every sound of footsteps dragging and stopping right beside him. In fear, he curled up tighter. If someone yanked him, he would surely perish. The footsteps stopped, and soft whispers emerged, a language that sounded completely strange, and Edgar couldn't understand a single word. Meow, meow. Scared out of his wits, the mournful cries of a stray cat outside sent a shiver down Edgar's spine, making him want to scream. But he had to hold himself back. Just one movement, and someone at his feet would surely catch him. After a while of lying there, feeling a bit more secure, Edgar cautiously cracked the blanket open to look. But someone hadn't left. They were lying right next to him. The face was ash-gray, dotted with patches of black, and wide eyes were staring right at Edgar. This time, he threw off the blanket and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Ghost! There's a ghost! Save me!" Hearing the frantic scream, everyone sat up, looking around confusedly. Edgar panted as he glanced back to where he had seen someone, and then scanned the surroundings. Had someone really left? He quickly wiped away the beads of cold sweat on his forehead and face. Baron, who was lying closest to the side, also woke up and asked, "What's going on, Edgar?" Edgar stammered, "Ghost. I saw a female ghost." So scary. Baron sat up, lit the extinguished candle with a lighter, and walked over to Edgar. The others only watched attentively. Baron said, "You must have been haunted during the day. That's why you're scared now." Upon hearing Baron say that, Edgar hoped that he was merely delusional. He then decided to lie down and continue sleeping. But Alexander also muttered quietly, I also saw. The others began to chatter excitedly. Could it be the female ghost from this morning? Why is her body taken away, but her soul remains here? Maybe it's not the female ghost after all. Despite the noisy discussions, Damien still slept soundly, while the others spent the night uneasy, fearing that the female ghost might return. The next morning, while preparing to cook breakfast for everyone, Baron kept noticing a foul smell lingering in the air. After roaming around, he eventually opened the lid of the rice pot he had cooked the night before for Damien, in case he got hungry. Upon lifting the lid, Baron was startled and dropped the lid onto the floor. Inside, the rice had spoiled and turned watery, with fat maggots wriggling around. The clatter of the lid also woke a few people, who groggily complained, "Be gentle, I couldn't sleep all night. Who's awake here to see this?" The ones who were awake gathered around to take a look, all gasping in shock. Alexander stammered, "Ghost. We are haunted by a ghost. Otherwise, how could the rice be like this? Has Damien woken up yet?" "Not yet. Let's just leave it here and talk to him when he wakes up. I guess I need to go to the market to buy some offerings. This is too scary." When Damien finally woke up and saw the rice pot, he didn't say anything, merely filled his stomach before heading out to work. But soon, he disappeared for a long time without returning. Everyone thought he must have had an upset stomach and was taking too long in the restroom, especially after the strange meal yesterday. When lunchtime arrived and Damien still hadn't appeared, they started looking for him. After searching for a long time with no sign of him, they regrouped. Baron said, "Where could he have gone?" "The vehicle is still here." Vincent interjected, "Maybe a ghost took him away and hid him." "No idea." The group looked at each other, sighing, not understanding where Damien had ducked away to. Baron continued, "Let's go wash up and eat. Wherever he is, he can come back later to eat." "Yes." So the group headed to the well. Under the scorching sun, splashing well water felt incredibly refreshing. Just as they reached the well and Henry prepared to lower a bucket, he glanced down and suddenly stumbled back, screaming in fright. Everyone turned to look at Henry, and then back down the well, their souls almost leaving their bodies. At the bottom of the well was a corpse, head first, legs sticking up into the air. Because it was a makeshift well, it wasn't too wide, but it was deep enough since they hadn't excavated all the way to the water table. Edgar stammered, Could it be Brother Damien? Who knows? We can only find out by hauling it up." The news of the body found in the well was quickly reported to the police, who sprang into action upon receiving the information. The first step was to secure the scene and take statements from everyone. The tale of Damien being haunted and falling in wasn't believed by anyone. Discussions about spiritual matters weren't part of the investigative procedures. Damien's corpse was recovered, examined by forensic experts, then returned to his family for the funeral. The construction site was forced to halt operations for a considerable time, with workers frequently called in for questioning by the police. Damien's body was promptly buried back at his home. Shortly after the burial, his immediate family, including his elderly mother, wife, younger brother, and child, all descended into madness, the reasons for which remained unknown. Day and night, they screamed, catching live animals to eat, and sometimes even resorted to self-cannibalism. At this point, Heulwen looked at the children and said, "That's all. You kids can go now." The group chimed in. "That's so scary, Auntie." In the end, whose body was that? What about the family? Are they going to be okay, just suddenly going insane like that? Heulwen replied, I don't know what Damien let out at that time, but I heard that they were saved later. Serves him right. That boy was too reckless. That's why matters of the supernatural shouldn't just be observed during the Ghost Festival. One must always be cautious. There are things from the spirit world that are best left untouched. Now go play. Find something to do inside the house. Yes. Heulwen stood up to lock the gate, casting a glance at the trees across the street. In the darkness of night, nothing was distinguishable except for the flickering incense sticks hovering in the air. The story ends here. Thank you all for always following and supporting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on the highly anticipated stories. If you enjoyed it, please like and leave your comments. Sincere thanks to you all, and I wish you good health.